Hello and welcome to
Hello.
MiHUB Monday on this Monday, September the 26th at 1 p.m. here Eastern Time.
I do have it, but I won't be able to get it to you probably in time because I'm actually.
Thank you for joining us on this session. And once again, we have a really good set of individuals who are participating with us for MiHUB Monday today, where we're going to be talking about manufacturing innovation and leveraging technology and leveraging innovative ideas to build and to grow manufacturing firms. My name is Scott Phillips, and I'm the director of the MBDA Advanced Manufacturing Center here in Baltimore, Maryland. We are funded by the U.S. Department of Commerce. We fall under the Minority Business Development Agency, and we are operated, very fortunate to be operated by the city of Baltimore. This week, before we begin our program, I wanted to highlight a few things really exciting. The Minority Enterprise Development Week, which is a national event, was held in Washington, D.C. last week. And it highlighted a number of firms who've been very successful minority business enterprises. It also gave us an opportunity for organizations like ours to meet with colleagues like ours around the country, specialty centers that deal in advanced manufacturing, import, export, finance, federal procurement, and business centers, of which we have the Maryland Business Center, which is located really right around the corner from us and operated by L.S. Caldwell and Associates and my colleague, Gianna Hilton, and the Virginia Business Center, which is operated by the Capital Region Minority Supplier Development Council. Why do I say that? I say that because it's important for those of you who are participating with us to understand the breadth of the organization that we are working with, Minority Business Development Agency. It is that breadth of the organization that allows us to do what we do. It is the funding from that organization, it is the network, and it is the technical assistance that we're able to provide, but that also we are gleaning from experiences like last week's Med Week. I want to take a moment also to congratulate our team here in Baltimore for being recognized as members of the Century Club, which means that we've done a fairly good job in providing services to the businesses here in the Mid-Atlantic. And we wouldn't be able to do that without the clients that we have, without the stakeholders like RMI, like the Maryland MEP, the Meridian Management Group, who assists us with financing our clients. We wouldn't get any of that done if it were not for the support that we have here locally. So I've made enough announcements. I'm excited about what is taking place here at the MBDA Advanced Manufacturing Center in Baltimore, but I'm even more excited about our session today. We have joining us today, we're going to have Antoine Hutchinson, who is one of our clients, who's going to share his background and an overview of FabPro Technologies and some of the work that they're doing in innovation and bringing in new technologies to increase their productivity and ultimately to help them grow from a revenue perspective. We have Laila Partridge, who is part of Techstars, and Techstars is an innovation accelerator, along with Martin Quay, who is a vice president at Stanley Black Decker. So Stanley Black Decker has stood up Techstars here locally, and you'll hear more about that. And also joining us today is going to be my good friend, Mark Lawrence, who wears a number of hats in addition to being the lead for the MiHUB Cooperative. He is also very familiar with Techstars as one of their entrepreneurs in residence. So this is an exciting day, a lot of information coming to you, and I look forward to hearing from all of these individuals. So we're going to start today with Mr. Antoine Hutchinson, and hopefully he will join us. Hopefully he'll get his screen on so we can see him. And Antoine is the president and CEO of FabPro Technologies, which happens to be one of our clients. So we're excited about highlighting Antoine, a Baltimore native, Gilman grad, really a sharp engineering individual who will tell us a little bit more about himself and the company that he owns and operates, Mr. Antoine Hutchinson. How are you today, Antoine?
I'm doing great today, Scott. Thank you for having me. Thank you. So again, I'm Antoine. I speak really fast. I'm going to try to slow it down for this so everyone can hear me because I'm told I speak really fast. So anyway, background on me, I'm the owner of FabPro Technologies, as Scott said, and we're a precision metal manufacturer in Hillthorpe, Maryland, which means we do custom, especially metal products for companies that don't have their own manufacturing facility. Companies like NASA, Raytheon, companies like that. Basically, if they don't have stuff, they don't have the facilities to make it themselves. We'll make it. And the best example would be like your cable box, the actual metal box. This is the stuff that we make. But we have like a variety of clients. If you want to look up one of our customers, Automated Processes is one of our clients. You look at their website, they have all the stuff on their website actually is products that we made. Anyway, a little bit about myself. I've been an entrepreneur, I guess, since day one. When I was my very first credit card, I got to so I could buy a car and sell it. Like went to an auction, bought the car, and sold the car. It didn't work out so well for me. Actually, I went losing money in the project, but I kept going. And then I made T-shirts. I used to make T-shirts and sell T-shirts with my college roommate and our best friend. And then I used to flip houses, would buy houses, renovate them, and sell them. So I've always kind of had the mentality of like, it's kind of work for myself, which it's just kind of how I found FabPro. It was kind of found FabPro I kind of got into FabPro almost like by accident, because I was working at a company fresh out of college, and I was like the computer guy, and it was a manufacturing company, like kind of like the one I own now. And in my spare time, I would when I wasn't doing my computer duties, I would go on the shop floor and just kind of talk to the different people and say, okay, this machine right here, what does this do? Show me how to work this machine. Okay, what does this do here? I just learned as much as I could. Well, my free time, because I was basically because I was bored, but also because this industry has always been fascinating to me. And so as a result of that, one day the company actually made me the production manager, because I had learned the production manager went out like with illness, so they made me the production manager, and that's kind of how I got into like management. Fast forward, I want to believe in the company because my real estate business was doing really well, flipping and buying and selling houses was doing really well. So, but then I found another company that was struggling. The struggling company that I found, well, actually, the company found me, I should say. They, someone reached out to me and said they could use someone with, they knew me from my previous production management experience. They said they could use someone like you for your expertise in production management. So I said, sure, why not? How often does a job actually find you? So I was like, sure. I was working maybe 2 hours a day flipping houses, but doing okay though, doing well. So I go in, and this company had like a ton of potential. It was like, but they were like, so say age-old story. The husband and the wife retired. They turned their company over to their kids, and their kids ran into the ground inside of a year. So those of you who have kids, you want your kids to run your business, train them in the business before you actually turn it over to them, because that didn't work out so well for the previous company. Like, and so they brought me in, and actually when they brought me in, they actually, like, my first day was there. They were, as I'm walking in, their son's walking out. As I later found out, they fired their son and hired me. Anyway, the company didn't make it. It had too much. It was too far gone to make it. So I found investors to buy FabPro Technologies. So I found investors to buy the business, and then that company then became FabPro Technologies. And so then I became the manager of FabPro. They made me the manager of FabPro, which I had no idea how to manage a company at the time. They were like, look, you convinced us to buy this, you're going to run it. I'm like, oh. They were like, if you don't run it, then we're going to lay off everyone here and start from scratch. And I said, okay, I'll do it. I'll learn it. And I had but back then I had 12, 13-hour days was like the norm for me, because I was in such a huge learning curve, especially back in like the early 2000s, when like the internet isn't what it is now. Now you can look at a YouTube video and teach you how to do basically anything. Back then, there was no YouTube. There was no, like, just the simplest thing would be like a 3-hour Google search. And actually, there was no Google back then, if I'm not mistaken, actually, in 2003. So it was like a huge learning curve, which was, okay. I made it work. The fast forward to FabPro, I want to buy in FabPro because I took advantage of the fact that when we were not very, very well diversified as far as our customer base. So we were too heavily invested in like government customers. So when the Iraq and Afghanistan wars ended, a lot of our work went away. So the owner at the time didn't have any money saved, didn't have any and had a lot of debt. So I use that as an opportunity to say, okay, I'll take this company off your hands, and I'll even and I'll give you a little bit of money for it, but then I'm going to be 100% owner of the company. So that's kind of how I got it. It's a longer story than that, but we don't have a lot of time for that. Anyway, fast forward, the company struggled for years trying to like rebuild, because manufacturing is a very, it's a very capital intensive industry. It's a very capital intensive business, and we were very undercapitalized. But like saying you don't know what you don't know. I didn't realize how undercapitalized we were, for years. So we're like, and especially like, machines are very expensive. They break down, the technology changes. So anyway, fast forward to the PPP, to the COVID. So the COVID comes, and then we apply for and get both rounds of both PPP loans. So that was like a huge infusion of cash that I didn't even realize my company needed. But as it turned out, it really did need that infusion of cash, because I was able to then upgrade, fix equipment, get new equipment, hire new employees. And from that point forward, it's kind of counterintuitive when most people's businesses actually floundered during COVID. Our business, because we did government defense work, our business was deemed essential, so we had to stay open. And actually because of that, and the PPP monies, that's when it really took off. I was able to hire a person to run the business, a production manager, actually a Black woman, and I was able to hire another woman to do business development, so I could focus on actually customer engagement, which actually made a huge difference as far as the company. Like our sales, right now, our sales are like our sales are quadruple what they were in 2017. Where we're doing work. We're actually getting work that was done in Taiwan. We're making parts that were made in Taiwan, actually right here in the United States now. We have like cybersecurity company, government defense companies, which is like things that were not even possible without the capital infusion. And speaking of capital infusion, that's kind of how we got to the MBDA. Scott Phillips and his organization has been extremely helpful with that. We now possess a laser machine, which cuts metal. It's what it says. It cuts metal with laser. It's a pretty expensive machine. And with Scott's help, we were able to get a loan from the county at a very, very favorable interest rate for long term. The payments. Our payments are $1,600 a month, which is ridiculously low. But that process was, as you can imagine, government bureaucracy can sometimes be cumbersome. But Scott intervened and actually got it done for us really, really quickly. Helped us get it done really quickly. And he's also actually helped us get loans and grants for website development, and others as well in the state of Maryland as well. The Department of Commerce have helped us get loans for we got our a loan to get our website done. We got a grant where they get our website done. We received grants to get the laser powered up. And as such, the new equipment that we have is actually it actually is like 5 times faster than what we had before. It's like the one machine is actually producing 5 times faster. It's caused it to hire. We've more than doubled our work. Actually, we've almost tripled our workforce in the past 2 years. And it's all because of the capital infusion. Earlier this year, I actually bought the building that we're in, that we were renting for years. And as soon as I bought the building, I'm paying $4,000 a month less in mortgage than I was paying in rent for the building. So that was almost like capital infusion of sorts there as well. And that's another thing that Scott Phillips actually helped with the MBDA, because we were having issues with when you buy a commercial building, you have to do what's called an environmental site survey. And the survey was for our building, because it was pretty old, was pretty cumbersome. And there were records dating back to the 70s and beyond and before, and some of those records were hard to find. We were having an issue with the one of the government agencies in the state of Maryland. They weren't giving us the answer that we needed. And so we waited. We applied. We waited 6 weeks. They came back and said, okay, it's going to be another 6 weeks before you can actually get the answer that you want. And we're like, we reached out to Scott and said, look, Scott, in 6 weeks we'll be out of contract, and I'm pretty sure that the owner of the building will not read the contract at our current sales price. So Scott made a phone call to the powers that be in the state of Maryland. We got our answer within 3 hours. Something that took us 6 weeks, it was going to take us another 6 weeks to get. We got those answers within 3 hours, and we were actually able to close on the building, and actually was able to buy the building and close on it 3 days before it went out of contract, which would not have happened without the help of the MBDA. The thing that's actually great about the MBDA is for companies like myself who wouldn't know who to go to, where to turn to. It's like we now have someone to turn to, someone to go to, and it's been instrumental with everything. I mean, like I said, my business is we're hiring. We're hiring people now. It's we have more work than we can do. We're trying to figure out how to scale the business. Actually, we've taken up a lot more space and a lot more in the building, and and increased our customer base actually. So I think that's my time. So yeah, hope I didn't talk too fast.
No, Antoine, this is a great story. So one of the questions I have for you really relates to this innovation piece that we're talking about today, and that's the technology that you brought in with the laser printer. And kind of sharing with us, I know you're talking about tripling your revenues over time, but talk to us about what you see in terms of new clients and new opportunities that will avail themselves as a result of the new technology.
Well, technology is the ultimate equalizer, right? Because if you go back to like decades, the quote unquote tradesperson that makes a pretty good wage, those people are usually of a certain demographic, right? And so it's kind of harder to like to kind of break into the newer technology. I mean, it's kind of harder to get into the manufacturing world if you're trying to use the older technology. So for us, it was imperative that we use the newer technology, because newer technology means that like I can hire an engineer out of college and they can actually like train on it and get it done. So that's the first piece as far as technology, why it's important, because it's actually like I said, the technology is the ultimate equalizer as far as opportunity. But that technology is allowing us to like, we have the laser machine that we have, it allows us to cut things that like companies like much bigger than us can cut. I mean, we're doing the industry win is a precision industry, which means we're making parts that are accurate to within 0.005 inches. 0.005, to give you an example, is less than the thickness of a sheet of paper. So if our stuff is off by more than the thickness of a sheet of paper, it's no good. We have to do that in lots of 100, lots of 1,000, whatever. I mean, so obviously a person can't do that by themselves. They need actually equipment to do that. They need the software. So we've made investments not just in the hardware, but also the software makes it, which works with the software, which works with the hardware to actually do that. And that's actually allowed us to. I mean, we had now a client that did a defense contract that did, I think, 10 billion in sales last year. They and we were able to do their products, and usually their vendors were usually much bigger companies than us, but we're actually able to do it because like the laser, the software, the other equipment that we're getting has been really has really, like I said, it's the ultimate equalizer, because like just because another company has like a bigger laser or more lasers, their laser's not more accurate. We're using the exact same software that Northrop Grumman will be using, and that's why I say it's the ultimate equalizer.
So where do you see yourself, let's say in another 2 to 3 years, in terms of number of employees? And you are I've had an opportunity to be on your plant floor, right? And had the opportunity to host a meeting at your facility. And one of the things that has been very impressive is the diversity in your staff. Talk to me about, who you hire, how you hire them, and how you see them being able to grow with your company.
So so our focus is on inclusive hiring, and typically we want to give a second look to underrepresented minorities in particular, which means that like in our company, like the two top managers in the company are women, and actually women, fairly young women, and women in their 30s actually, because they didn't have necessarily manufacturing backgrounds, but because the technology piece, they can learn the technology in many ways a lot easier than like someone that's been doing this for like someone's in their like that's been doing this for their entire life and they have no desire to learn technology. So it's like they're more pliable a lot of times. The young people are sometimes more pliable, and as such, it allows us to actually hire women. We also our staff is, I believe it's 75% minority. We in fact, I've hired a couple of engineers. They're both women of color. One's because I think it's important that our company's demographics represent the demographics of Baltimore City, Baltimore County. We have, it's like if you look at the demographics of Baltimore City, Baltimore County, our company mirrors that almost exactly. We're representing with basically all Asian, Latino, Black, women, LGBTQ. We even have agender, and I think that's important. I think that diversity is really important because we have every group brings a different ideas, brings a different perspective. Those different perspectives, when melted together, actually make a stronger. That's what America is, right? It's a melting pot of ideas, right? So that's kind of an emphasis. That is an emphasis in my business to make sure that everyone is represented. Of course, Caucasian as well. I didn't mention that, but yes, of course, Caucasian as well, or are well represented as well. But yeah, so that's it's only made possible because of the technology piece. Because the technology piece is, like I said, the ultimate equalizer. If we buy a new piece of equipment, everyone's getting trained at the exact same time. So someone in the past doesn't have an advantage. Someone that's been doing this, you know, whose father did this, his grandfather did this, doesn't have an advantage over this new technology. We're all learning at the same time, and we're all going to make mistakes on it. We're all going to like perfect it at the same time. And the person that learns the fastest, the best is going to be the person that's most capable.
Man, well, let me just say this. I'm excited about the work that we've had an opportunity to do with you, Antoine. And this is a good segue into our panel to talk about Techstars and the Techstars Accelerator program. This is a program that you probably could have used when you started out, but we're going to hear from Laila, Partridge, and Martin as they talk about the Techstars program and how they invest, support, and help to build companies like FabPro. So Laila, why don't you kind of start us off by talking a little bit about Techstars? I know you're the director of the Stanley Black Decker Techstars program, and you have a number of firms here in the Baltimore metropolitan area that you've worked with. So I'm really interested in hearing about what you're doing and some of those success stories.
Well, thank you, Scott. Thank you also for having us. I'm excited to be here, delighted to speak to anyone, and all the way always happy to get follow-up conversations. The best way to reach me, if anything interests you that what I talk about, is please reach out to me on LinkedIn. I want to start a little bit to give an overview of what Techstars does. Techstars is a global organization. We run 54 accelerators all over the globe in about 22 countries. We've been doing this for 15 years, really ramping up in the last couple of years, which means that we currently have a portfolio of about 3,000 companies that have gone through our programming. Together, these companies have raised $23.5 billion of funding, and they have a market cap of about 75 billion. So you can kind of see there's a couple of outliers in that group that are unicorns, and we talk about 19 of them, and then we also have 6 companies that have gone public. And I would sort of say, in sort of contrast to what we heard from Antoine is clearly building us as a business in a local community, and we definitely engage in local communities. Marty and I are going to talk about that in a second. And we also very much engage with large companies and supporting them as they look for new innovations. But one of the things I want to sort of highlight is that the companies that we work with, we do 2 things. One, we provide them with programming to learn some of the things and raise some of the money that Antoine was talking about. But we also look for companies that are really looking to grow quickly. And so they are driven by technology and innovation, and we take sometimes pretty big risks. Laser cutters, when Antoine got his equipment, well-known, well-established. That's fantastic. Delighted to work with someone like Antoine as a supplier in many of our companies. But I think the other thing that we also look at is for things that are pretty far off. Like, you know, plasma deposition was one of the companies coming out of one of the universities that we worked with. So we look at some pretty far off things. My focus is on manufacturing, and particularly industrial electrification and sustainability. And that is really the work I've been doing with Marty and also Stanley. So I'm going to turn over to Marty to talk a little bit about how and why you guys decided to partner with us. And then maybe we can talk more about some of the companies and some of the things we've looked at and take it from there.
Martin Quay.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Laila. And Antoine, very nice presentation on your business and your journey. Certainly, we share a lot of the same challenges, but at a larger scale, but certainly the same types of issues at Stanley Black Decker. We're an 18 to $20 billion global tools and outdoor business. What's in our brands such as Black Decker, Craftsman, DeWalt, Porter Cable, Mac Tools, and a whole host of brands. But we're focused on bringing innovation to our customers. And really, I'd look at it as 2 different kinds of innovation. One is product innovation, and that's really where we work on our products to make them much more customer friendly, much more customer successful, at a better cost, at a faster speed, and a higher quality. And then there's innovation around how we do all that. And I'll talk about both of those today, because I think product innovation really connects both of those. So at Stanley Black Decker, we look, we do a lot of innovation around our products. One of the reasons we engage with Techstars is to really find out and understand what the innovation world is working on in areas of critical importance to us. One of those is electrification. So as we have outdoor mowers and snow blowers and chainsaws and power tools, we're electrifying all those. The world is electrifying many moments of power instead of using cords or 2-cycle engines or 4-cycle engines or car engines, right? Everything's moving to electrification for environmental reasons and for through legislation and through what people want in this world. So we have to stay up. So Techstars, our last accelerator, really worked on electrification in Baltimore. So we brought in a multiple of startups, 12 startups around the world, really coming into Baltimore to look at different components of electrification and mobility, because the other thing we wanted to solve for is because a lot of our outdoor equipment moves, we need to solve for mobility also. So, we really get a lens into what innovators around the country and the world are working on when we set up an accelerator. So they came to Baltimore last winter. They spent 3 months really getting their business into shape. Laila ran the accelerator. The hypothesis with Techstars, and we're one of 50 accelerators in the world, there's 49 others, is that in 3 months, the startup can advance 18 months to 2 years through intense mentoring, networking, and really content delivery. And because they're together with other founders, there's a force multiplier effect of people learning from each other. So one of the things we found with innovation is you need to be with other people, you need to be working with other people, you need to be sharing these ideas. So this is what we call early stage innovation. A lot of these companies are, pre-revenue, early revenue, pre-seed investment, seed investment, maybe Series A, but in that area, in those goalposts. So they're early on. So we have them work with our innovation teams to work hard on that. The second part of innovation I spoke about is, in our manufacturing processes, and Antoine has spoken about this with his laser cutter and how that has been transformed his ability to do some things really as competitive as some of the big players because he's using the same tech. And we believe manufacturers should not be trying to invent a new manufacturing process. They should go to the best in the world, the Rockwells, the Fanuc Robotics, the Ready Robotics, all of the big hardware and software companies that are on the front end of manufacturing around advanced manufacturing industry 4.0, and use their innovations, which are now being commercialized. So as you're looking to innovate around your products, you want to get the best in class advanced manufacturing companies to then build those for you and use that technology in your company. We believe it's a way to really accelerate your business. There's a real need for talent today. I'm not even sure we're going to find enough people. I mean, everyone's like, oh, we only need, 1 million more people in this industry. We only need, 500,000 over here. I think the technology is going to, I think the way we're going to solve this problem is bringing in more technology and automation, and the people in their jobs today to pay them more to manage that new technology and automation, because they will have better jobs with better benefits and better career growth. The jobs will be more interesting. So we think that's really the way the world is going to go. We have to create more makers, more builders, more manufacturers, but we actually need to bring in more technology because I'm not sure we can find enough people to do all these jobs when people are trying to get them to fly planes and to drive trucks and to do all this other stuff, right? So it is a real hunt for talent. Technology, as Antoine said, can be a great equalizer. It can catch you up. And then if your people can manage that technology a lot better, you can actually compete with the bigger players or the faster players. And we believe a partnership with an organization like Techstars allows us then to see what's out in the world in many of these areas of key importance. So that's what we're thinking about at Stanley.
And I want to pick up on a couple of things that Marty said, because we've worked a lot very closely on this. The first, going back to electrification. So when people think about electrification, they always think about electric cars and they think about building out the ecosystem of electric cars. But really, when you go down to the products that Marty was talking about, like snow blowers, okay, so if you're going to make them mobile, suddenly you need to make them lighter. So then you start looking at new materials to make them lighter. Or maybe you look at a coating that enables you to use a lighter material that may be more susceptible to things like corrosion. So we have a coatings company, which you think electrification coatings, well, it kind of makes sense when you start thinking about it, right? Another example is, when you're trying to electrify things and mobility, you start looking at autonomous. Now, wouldn't it be awesome if you didn't have to sort of ask your kid to go mow your lawn and you can instead kind of push a button and your lawnmower to go out and do it on its own? I mean, these are the kinds of things that Stanley's looking at. And so one of the companies that we were looking at as well and had in our portfolio for them was a team out of Land Rover Jaguar who had been working on autonomous systems and was developing this very cool autonomous navigation system. They're focused on a slightly different market, but again, that insight in terms of what's happening is what Stanley's looking at when they engage with these very early stage companies. And unlike Antoine, our companies are little. Like sometimes it's one founder or maybe 3 or 4 people. They're early, they're super early. And so part of it is then being able to reach in for the expertise that lies within someplace like Stanley, where you have someone who is running an experienced type of manufacturing shop and can help them with, figuring out the market where it is, or some technical advice in terms of domain expertise. So that's the kind of stuff we're looking at. And we really hope that ultimately someone like Antoine will use some of these technologies. To Marty's point, we begin to sort of support them with Techstars, work with large companies like Stanley, and then hopefully it all spreads out into the ecosystem, going back into suppliers and forward into the customers.
This whole idea of ecosystems and building ecosystems, which it sounds like you're clearly a part of, but we're on the very early stage. I've got just a number of questions that have kind of come out of this discussion. What does one of your Techstars early stage companies look like? Are they the inventors? Are they just, folks with these really, really good ideas? Are they coming to you with something prototyped already? What do they look like?
So we very much reflect what's happening outside in kind of the Silicon Valley type of companies and investors as an organization. And that means that the vast majority of our companies are software-based companies. And the vast majority of them might be some really cool ideas that's using existing software tools to come up with a different way of doing something. There's a whole host of other ones that are really inventors. They truly are not just inventing a new business model, which is invention, but also inventing technology. And then we have what I really focus on, and Marty and I've worked on very closely, which is hardware companies that are doing something different, either in terms of building a robot, doing something with hardware and software, or trying to kind of bring data and software analytics into the physical world, right? Onto the factory floor, touching something which is a tool or other kind of product that has a physical manifestation. And that's really kind of where we're seeing technology in general going. When people talk about deep tech, which is kind of that next industrial revolution that's coming around the corner, they're really talking about taking huge amounts of data that we currently have, beginning to pull that data, using analytics, which is really software, and then applying that to making the physical world around us more efficient. And so that's really the kind of stuff we're thinking about. I don't know, Marty, you should comment on this too, because obviously we worked on this together a lot.
We do. I mean,
Marty's doing that. I really want to bring Marty,
I can't hear you, Scott.
You can't hear me. I really wanted to bring Mark Lawrence in as well, because he's had some experience from a different perspective in working with you all with Techstars. So hopefully Mark is ready to join us. But go right ahead, Marty. Go ahead and finish your comment. Well,
I'm not sure I heard all of yours, Scott, but I know the spirit of it. You know, in terms of the stakeholders in the ecosystem, you know, we're all trying to compete, and we compete on speed, we compete on cost, we compete on quality, and we compete on differentiation. And certainly technology can get you there, but I believe the world is so competitive right now, and there's so much out there. You've got to really network across the board. I mean, what Techstars does for us allows us to see what the innovation ecosystem in the world is doing, because we have access to our accelerator, but all the other ones also. And some are focused on the future of industry, some are focused on mobility, some are focused on fintech, some are focused on AI. So that's one way. The other is through industry associations. You know, like people engage with the MBDA. I mean, this is a way to, it's a force multiplier. You know, you're allowed to, you see a lot of different things, you connect people. I've worked with Dr. Mike Galeazzo at RMI, and you know, Mike's come up to Connecticut, and we've had representation in Maryland, and we share ideas and share best practices. And you know, this is a way to learn, is to understand what others are doing, because you know, we compete in the same environment, the same ecosystem. So we have a lot of the same inputs and outputs that we have to solve for. I mean, you know, if you're in the forest, you may be a different looking tree, but you're looking for water and sun, right? I mean, it's not complicated, and you may have different properties of how you grow and what kind of leaves you produce, but you need to understand how these other trees, you know, are working and successful, right? I think it's important. So the networking is critical, the connections are critical. All this matters, because at some point, the businesses are going to deploy capital. And when you're a small business and you deploy capital, you can't make a mistake, because you don't have a lot of shots at deploying the right capital to buy the right equipment or the right software. And then you need to train your workforce to do a different job. It still may be cutting metal, but it's in a whole different way, and they have to come along also. So the challenge of 2022 is not just deploying technology, it's actually deploying that technology and the job change at the same time, and making sure that you have the right people for that job. It's a tricky moment, and a smaller business has less oxygen to do that. A big company can make a mistake and recover. A small business, if it buys the wrong tech or it doesn't train the people right, I mean, this can become a real problem in a business.
Truly a challenge.
Yeah.
So now, Mark, are you out here with us?
Yeah, I'm here. And again, I think Marty teed up, I guess, my contribution to this conversation and why we have the MiHUB co-op, right? Because I want to lean into a couple of things really around force multiplier and scale, specifically in manufacturing, around ecosystem development, and around providing more opportunities for all, right? Because we know that there's a lot of manufacturing infrastructure that you need. And you know, back to Marty's point about being a large company, but if I'm a small business like Antoine or like others that we serve, how do we get to that scale? And really what's interesting when you talk about the ecosystem, Techstars has invested a lot. So there's a number of accelerators that they run, and they have a proven model. But the whole idea is really to get more diversity, more access, because Laila did explain a profile of one company, but in my view of sitting as an entrepreneur in residence, I've seen others, right? And really, I sit at the intersection of technology, entrepreneurship, and social entrepreneurship. And it's really about how do we use this innovation, use this moment in time to transform how we develop our communities, and how do we anchor them in certain industries. And that's why we heard about the different themes. But I do believe that what we've been building here, and why we're talking about this idea, is that we have the service side of the equation well when we talk about the population we serve, but how do we get them into the innovation roadmap, which takes a lot of heavy investment in research and development, heavy focus on product, and get them to make that pivot, right? So they have a customer base that's active, but how do we team them with these new deep tech or near tech opportunities and use that to create sustainable communities. And really what we look at, and one of the reasons why I'm intrigued about this and I'm excited to be in this conversation, is that we built the co-op model to do just that. So taking folks that have an existing marketplace, get them to see something bigger than themselves, and get them to get access, education, and infrastructure through all these technology innovations that Laila and Marty and Antoine have been talking about.
I want to reinforce that. I would say that it's no longer, there is competition in the sense that folks like, Stanley Black Decker have to compete with their competitive products. But at the same time, there's also cooperation. And there needs to be the beginnings of an ecosystem that looks at a range of different ways of doing business. Some of the very large manufacturers, as all of you probably already know, are already paying and giving equipment to the supply chain because that's where the bottleneck is. And so now we're seeing all sorts of different things happening in that entire, roadmap from the supplier to the manufacturer to the customer. And that's where we were looking at innovation. How do we accelerate some of that? At the same time, to Mark's point, we as an organization, Techstars, are very committed to reaching beyond what we would say those traditional Silicon Valley kind of investments. We want to reach geographically, culturally, racially, all the different ways that we look at what we call underestimated communities, because that's what the partnership with JP Morgan is about. There's a large number of accelerators we're putting together for that. And that's really reaching out and making sure that innovation reaches every aspect of the community, not just in the United States, but globally as well. It's something we're very, very passionate about.
So Laila, you kind of alluded to this. I mean, you've got some outlines, right? You've got some, six firms that are already gone public. You've got, these 19 unicorns that you talk about. What happens to those that may not work out as well? Do they then move to another opportunity? What is that experience for an entrepreneur who may have an idea and that first go round, it may not go well? How do you handle that?
Well, I would even say that the typical statistics for those of you who are unaware is that, 1 to 3 out of 10 to 12 companies are going to do really, really well. That's where the unicorns come from. And then, outright, that same number in a group of 12 are going to fail. And what we're trying to do at Techstars is also to provide the education, the network, the support to make sure that that middle ground moves into the success category, right? That we really try moving it from, 80%, 90% failure, which is the usual statistics for startups, to, in our case, we have 80, 85%, depending on the year of success in our startups. But to your specific point, I would say that innovation is so much a function of luck. It's a function of all sorts of different influences in the ecosystem that you can't control. Like sometimes just timing. New technology comes out and disrupts you. Markets go down and there's no money to be had just from customers or otherwise. So there's a large degree of luck and timing and just market conditions that are not controllable by founders and entrepreneurs. We understand that. And so one of the things we definitely say to founders is, and we have serial founders who come through, maybe their first company didn't make it and they come back and back again and again. So we have many, many founders who come back. We have founders who, having failed, come back into our ecosystem and work for another startup. And really a lot of it has to do with the fact that they are passionate about trying something new and they like working for small companies. And Mark, you're nodding, you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? There's this whole, give back, continue to be part of the environment. And I would encourage that in all, in Maryland in general and other areas. That's kind of the work that Marty and I are also doing with Upsurge. I think, Mark, you're also involved with some of the other things with JP Morgan. These are all larger organizations committed to helping that happen in the community as well.
So I'm going to invite Antoine back to participate in this conversation. I start wondering if you have entrepreneurs like an Antoine who he has an established business, but often what I find with entrepreneurs is they have the capacity to look at new opportunities. And so I've been encouraging folks like Antoine and some of our other clients to look at other opportunities and to engage with organizations like Techstars. Have you found How does that work? And you kind of mentioned it, you got these serial entrepreneurs. I'm not suggesting that you go off and become a serial entrepreneur, Antoine, but I am suggesting that there may be opportunities to have people like Antoine engage in what you all are doing. How does that work?
We would love to have somebody like Antoine mentor and help those early stage entrepreneurs learn the things he knows, because he's managing people. He's got customers. He knows what he's building. That kind of expertise for someone who's a first-time entrepreneur, there's a lot to be learned. And so we encourage in a community and outreach to have mentors, particularly in the manufacturing area, to talk about, hey, we've built product, we have customers. And I don't know, Mark, you also look for mentors and others within your perspective on Techstars.
Yeah, and I would also add to that, Laila, yes, because again, back to a point earlier, innovation is just unpredictable things. So we need to have systems in place that we're continually doing that. Yeah, most of it is luck, but out of the different times it's predictable. So mentoring is one part, but also really looking at captive audience and partnering, right? So there's folks that have a service captive audience and I have a product that I want, or innovation I want to introduce, partnering and going after opportunities in a safe space, because a lot of this doesn't have to be done at scratch, but how do you stitch these systems, tools, networks, and people together so that they can activate and scale for the whole?
Prototyping, helping a startup, being willing to supply a startup. I mean, these are all the types of things that an ecosystem can provide. It really is a multiplier when that happens.
I want to say that Techstars is a phenomenal program, because I know that if something like that were around when I was starting out, it would have shaved probably 6 years off of our development cycle. All the mistakes, I would probably still have hair if Techstars was around.
I'm so sorry.
I don't know if I know, maybe there's a lot of you start, you don't know, you get in, especially if you didn't start I didn't start in a business that as the operations officer, so I didn't learn the business. I kind of got things I didn't know, and just like the Techstars part, just point you in the direction of okay, who are my vendors? How do you find vendors? If you're looking for a specific product and you don't know where to look, it's not easy to find. So so to have other business owners that have Techstars incubators, how about is actually that's a really phenomenal program. I would love to be involved as much as possible now. Like I said, I wish I could turn back the clock because I would still have hair.
Yeah, I think the other piece is just when Marty talks about how we aim to, in 13 weeks, to do what normal other companies would do in 18 months. It really is about getting a group of mentors. And I usually have about 90 to 100 mentors meet every single company. And in that kind of mentor madness, because it truly is madness, there's just feedback. And there's just connections. And then there's the opportunity to test ideas and to test them a couple of different ways with getting a couple of different answers and then figuring out which ones make the most sense. But I look at mentorship as being mentors who've done it before. So to helping what Anton's talking about in terms of not misstepping. I also very much look at it in terms of domain expertise. And this has got a lot of what you're doing, which is manufacturing expertise, putting people together who know what they're, have knowledge on the technology side, but also what I would say market expertise in terms of domain. When we talk to the Stanley Black Deckers of the world, they have lots of customers and they have lots of suppliers and they see a lot. And so talking to anyone who's touching all of that can say, well, that's really not what's going on the factory floor. What's really going on is blah. And that way founders can have a better way of figuring out, okay, which feature do we prioritize when we're trying to come up with a product? What's the right timing? Who should we target? It's just being able to actually have that kind of knowledge. And then lastly, what I think is really critical is what I call functional expertise. If you've never written a press release, well, if you talk to a PR person who's been doing it for 30 years and you talk to them for 15 minutes, boy, that shaves a lot of time off from getting on Google and trying to figure out how to do it on your own, right?
So this is great because I'm starting to get a better picture of what it is you all are doing with these firms when you have them. And you keep talking about 13 weeks. Is that, from an operational perspective, the length of the program for someone that comes in? You do everything in kind of a 13-week program, or does it extend beyond that?
It definitely extends beyond that because Techstars is Techstars for life. So we have lots of programming after the 13 weeks, but the 13 weeks is this very intensive period of time. And most managing directors like myself after you select your 10 to 12 companies, you customize what you're going to do depending on what they need, right? Who they are, what they need, what stage they're at. But most of it really covers all the basics. Think of it as a mini MBA, except for startup, because you don't have a lot of money, you don't have people, you don't have your resources, you're constrained in every other way. So you have to begin to think more creatively about it. For me, 13 weeks, when you really intensely put it all together, you have a graduation at the end of it, but your business doesn't change. You know, you continue to still grow the business. So there's nothing other than a graduation, so to speak. But we try to give you a lot of tools and a lot of exposure and contacts that as you grow your business past the 13 weeks, you come back to it. I mean, I have founders who come back and listen to the videotapes we have, the sessions a year or 2 years later and say, wow, that's now relevant, right? Because we're just trying to plant a seed, and then you kind of wait until they're ready to receive it, or maybe they need to hear it a couple times or need to experience it. The goal really here is to give context. You know, to Antoine's point, there's so much, you don't really know which one is most relevant when, but you definitely know that most people overall want to hear the basics and then grow from there.
Now, do finances come with your acceptance into the Techstars program? Is there a level of commitment for as we talk about this, you know, first round of investors, is there some level of commitment that comes with participating in the program?
We give up to $120,000 in funding, and for the program itself, it's at least 6% equity. So that's why, like, and Antoine's going to say, I can't give up that much equity at this stage. I've got a real business. But the early stage companies, it can really leverage, right? It can really help them.
I love it. Now, I have a question, right? Because often we do this innovation, and this is a situation that I'm finding. We will have innovators who come up with wonderful ideas, get those ideas to a place of where they're ready to be production. And we see production going everywhere except for here in the United States, and even more parochial here in the Baltimore metropolitan area. How are you all, particularly on the hard products, right? If you're manufacturing a widget, what are you all finding? And it may not just be the hard products, it's the software as well. What are you all finding about the ability to not only innovate, create, but also to produce?
Well, I'll start off, and I think Marty and also Mark and Antoine should answer, but I would say that this pandemic has changed things a lot. Even before the pandemic, large companies, and Marty can speak to this better than I can, we're starting to think of circular economy: buy, build, sell locally. And when you're shipping product, that really makes a lot of sense. And so when we're talking about manufacturing, I think there's been a pretty big shift. And the comment of saying that we're no longer building locally, I think it's shifting back to the US. And I think it needs to. I think it should. And I think it's something that organizations like yours should encourage. And Antoine has an opportunity to really be a part of driving that, as well as Mark. So I'm pretty excited about it being much more local than this notion of offshoring that I think you're referring to.
You're right. So how about the international conglomerate? Marty, you know, you're in this every day.
Yeah. I mean, I think for the past 75, 80 years, there was this labor arbitrage in manufacturing, which is finding the lowest cost source of labor to produce. So labor became somewhat commoditized, right? You find the cheapest set of hands you can in the world, you source your manufacturing there, and then you ship it where it needs to go. There's three problems today with that model. The first is political. The world is going from globalization to regionalization, and there's political considerations that are big, that people don't want their manufacturing in a risky place, so to say. The second is that we're bringing technology into manufacturing, which means people need to not use their hands as much, but use their heads. The machines become the hands. So you need people who can operate machines, who are smart, who are teachable, and who have the ability to produce in that high-tech hardware and software. And the third is really around green. I mean, you know, why make something across the world and ship it around the world? And the environmental impact is pretty severe to do that. And then there's the recognition of the social impact of taking jobs, moving them offshore, wiping out a neighborhood or a community who loses those jobs. Everyone who can now afford to buy that cheaper product gets a discount, but everyone in that neighborhood needs unemployment to survive. So now we're paying cheaper for the widget. We're paying more taxes to pay the people off. And I think there's a recipe here that needs to be recalibrated in society, that the social cost needs to be added into the product cost, right? There's a whole bigger play here that needs to be understood. I would rather pay higher price at the store and less taxes and have my neighbors in good jobs. That's, I think, makes more sense to me, but I think the world will recognize that point in the upcoming years.
So I think part of Antoine's growth is that experience that some of his clients are having. Correct, Antoine?
Yeah, I think like right now, about 30% of our revenue is from customers that were getting their products made overseas 2 years ago. So like, and one of my customers in particular said they're getting their products made in Taiwan, and they're saying with the, you know, the possibility China might actually do something in Taiwan, they want to get everything out of Taiwan just in case. There's like a mitigation plan for that. So like definitely, and also to like to Marty's point, that's actually like you know, a very good point. And another thing too, another misnomer is that like stuff is cheaper overseas. It is cheaper overseas because of the labor cost, but the machine cost is about the same. Like, so like we might charge $80 an hour, they might charge $60 an hour. So if we have, so like through automation, we're charging basically like they're not like China, Taiwan, India, they're not undercutting it. So if we're automating the stuff here with technology, we can actually compete. Like our prices are, I think our customer told us our prices are maybe only 5 to 10% more than what they're getting what they were getting in Taiwan, because, you know, because we're using more automation, but they said cost adjusted in Taiwan, they'd have to order like 500 units. With us, they can only order 100. In Taiwan, there might be 500 units and it might take them 6 months, and it might cost X amount of money in tariffs, X amount of money in shipping. When you do the net cost, their net cost actually oftentimes is cheaper with us. And if it's not cheaper, it's pretty much right around the same, right around the same, especially because the shipping costs are high. And then like the uncertainty with like COVID. So like you're getting stuff done in China, and then China decides they're going to shut the country down for COVID, then your supply chain is cut off. So like there's so many reasons why, like, I mean, that's actually the biggest reason why we're so busy right now, because stuff is reshoring, and the reshoring continues to happen. That's actually, and that's why with the reshoring and then the access to capital, we're able to buy the equipment. Once we buy the equipment, it won't go away, because we made the mistake years ago of to Marty's point, we made a mistake years ago of going for the lowest common denominator as far as labor. But now if we're higher trained and we're also using technology and better equipment, it's not gonna go back in that direction. So even when China, when COVID finally does get to be not as big an issue as it is, the fact that the stuff is coming back home, it's not gonna go away again.
Wow. So let me just say this. This seems to me to be the perfect storm for Made in America, right? We've got investment in innovation. We're putting money in, and I know you all are putting money in around the world, but I am really focused on the money that we're putting in here in the United States and here in the region. We've got companies like Antoine who are growing their business by leveraging technology and innovation. We've got the idea, Laila, that we would have mentors like Mark and Antoine working with those who are early stage companies. I think we're in a perfect storm. I'm going to give each one of you, because we're going to run over, I'm looking at my watch, a real quick second to kind of wrap up, and I'll start ladies first. So Laila, if you'd like to say a few closing comments and share any information about contacting you, go right ahead.
I'll start with the contact information. Laila Partridge, I'm on LinkedIn, and feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. And if you want to see any of the information about the accelerators we have, the 50 accelerators with a broad range of different topics, as well as different corporate partners, please go to techstars.com and take a look. My comment here would just say, I'm actually really excited about manufacturing right now in the United States. I see innovation happening. To Marty's point, it's leveraging and getting more interesting jobs into the people who maybe have perhaps more labor-intensive kind of prior jobs. I think we're seeing the demand go up, and locally the value and wanting to give back to community improving. And I'm really excited about what we're looking forward. And I think Maryland in particular is focused on doing some of this. So it's a terrific place for innovation and manufacturing to reside.
Thank you, Laila. Marty?
Yep, I agree with everything, and I would just say that a lot of the answers out there are outside of your four walls. So get outside and network and see the ecosystems in the world that can help you.
Antoine?
Yeah, I just like to say thank you to the MBDA and everyone on the call. You know, like take advantage of them. I talk to people all the time, and I'm like, you know, like they're like, well, how did you get all these grants? How did you get these loans? It's like, what, talk to MBDA. How do you know about these things? Talk to MBDA. And like, so I can't stress enough. It's like these guys, they you know, it's not one of those things like pie in the sky. It's like, you know, look us up, fabprotect.com, grant that we got to redo our website through the MBDA. So I just like to say, to highlight, you know, Scott Phillips and his organization, because they're really, I mean, that's, the relationship with the MBDA has actually changed FabPro's, the trajectory of our business quite a bit, because like a lot of the places we will be stonewalled and probably still be stonewalled, we're not. We know where to go for answers. I'd also like to say like Techstars, like again, I wish I knew about Techstars like way back when. It's just awesome. And I like to echo what Marty and Laila both said. I feel really very optimistic about the future of manufacturing in the United States, especially as far as technology goes, because you know. There's actually like overseas. Another reason why they're ahead of us is because they have more machines. It's kind of counterintuitive. You would think that like the United States with technology, you know, they have more. You go to like these companies, they have like, you know, like we have one laser. These companies will have like 100 lasers. You know, it's like we couldn't compete with that because not only did we not have the labor costs, we didn't have the technology, but as we're starting to bring that back to the United States and focus on that again, you know, we will be back to like making products in the United States, and like Marty said, you know, the taxes, the revenue, you know, helps support communities and ecosystems. So, yeah.
Well, I hope, Antoine, the next time we go out to help you buy a laser printer, we don't have to go all the way over to Germany or wherever we had to go to get that one. We're going to work on that too. Mark, you were
I have
the
a
right
startup,
person.
by the way, Antoine, you and I can talk because I have a startup that does some really cool laser cutting.
I would love to
Excellent.
talk about that.
And they're in Seattle, so they're US.
Oh, awesome.
See, and Laila, that's the reason why we do these, right? Because it educates people. It's the networking, it's creating the ecosystem and growing the ecosystem. And so Mark, I'm sure, is going to kind of wrap us up by kind of helping us understand how all of this comes together and why MiHUB is important in the midst of all of this, Mark.
Well, yeah, I was just going to wrap up and not steal your thunder. But yes, thanks to MBDA and the Advanced Manufacturing Center, but also learn more about the MiHUB Co-op, www.mihubcoop.com. Because again, we are energized. We're excited around all the energy around manufacturing and the advanced manufacturing in Maryland and the region. And we do want to build a place where we not necessarily, we call it a hub for a reason, but also to focus on getting information, getting connections, and getting access to opportunities for underrepresented and overlooked populations so that can be part of this economy. So, you know, a lot of this work we talked about was the actual tech and the innovation, but I also want to leave you with how this innovation can use us to transform our communities. So with that, Scott, I'll hand it over to you to do the final remarks.
All right, so I'm going to keep it very brief because we are over, and I usually don't like to go over. So I want to thank everybody for attending MiHUB Monday in this September 26th. I am going to encourage you, for those of you who are in manufacturing, 2022 Maryland Manufacturing Celebration, November the 17th. That is the Regional Manufacturing Institute of Maryland. Many of our clients are being considered for champions of manufacturing here in Maryland. If you're interested in becoming a champion of manufacturing, I ask you to go to rmiofmaryland.com for that. And also, another one of our colleagues is hosting the Maryland Manufacturing Innovation Conference. That is the Maryland MEP with Mike Kelleher. And so we encourage you to look that up. That is on Thursday, October the 6th, 7:30 to 4:30 p.m. Laila, Marty, Antoine, Mark, thank you all for participating this month. We're going to get this out so everybody will have an opportunity to see the replay. And we encourage you to come back again and visit us again. Thank you very much. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, guys.